It's Thursday night, and you know what that means? It's Real Monsters. I'm SK, and I'm joined by Wes
Hello, hello, hello.
and special guest host Kelly Evans,
Hey, how's it going?
all the way from the fictional land of Canada.
The fiction. Are we fictional now? I thought that was Australia.
Oh, well, it can be more than one.
Okay. Yeah.
Some people don't label New Zealand on a map, so I thought it was them, but okay.
Well, you get to the Niagara River, the border along Canada and the U.S., and all you guys just fall over. Yeah, we're not actually here.
Right.
Are your heads really square? South Park reference.
Yeah, we have giant slide. Yeah, we have giant, mouths. Yeah, and we've already apologized for Brian Adams.
Well, we all have our, secret shames. All the countries do.
Celine Dion, man. Anyway.
Oh, you guys also had Rush, so you more than made up for him.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
there you
Yeah,
go. There you go.
2112 is one of my favorite albums. Got to be.
Great band.
So for some reason, well, let's see. Okay, never mind. I was seeing the spinning wheel on the stream. We're good. We're good. All right. So tonight we are going to talk about women who kill for money.
Yep.
Good as reason as he. Sorry, what was that? Good reason as any was the expression?
And you told me you weren't drinking tonight.
Well.
So, all right. So we've got three very, very curious, interesting women to talk about tonight.
Well, and before we get into that, I think that it might be good to remind people that just because these women aren't killing for a sexual thrill or for some other sort of psychological cerebral motive does not make them a serial killer. When you're talking about what a serial killer is, it's blind to motive. It doesn't matter what the motive is.
Good point.
But isn't there, just to clear up the definition, isn't there like a number? There has to be over a certain number?
3. Yep.
3. Okay.
Three with a cooling off period, which is what distinguishes it from a spree killing.
Right. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So I find there's a lot of misunderstandings when people look at it. They don't put them in the same class, I guess you could say. But the professionals who study it, they don't see really that much of a difference. So.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, motive is There's no accounting for motive because, honest to God, they all have different motives.
They do. They really do.
So,
yeah, absolutely. But we just happen to be grouping together a couple of them who have similar motives, and that's the money.
Yes.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And let's start with Grandma. Or shall we? Yeah.
Dorothea Puente. Yeah, if you got, I don't know if you've got a picture of her for the board, but
Coming
I
right
didn't,
up.
Yeah,
I
I was
didn't
gonna
know,
say I sent a bunch of them earlier, so we should have a picture.
I didn't know much about her when we first started, and the first thing I thought was, oh my God, she's adorable. How could she possibly be a serial killer? Look at that face. She looks like my grandma.
She looks like my mom.
But yeah, beneath that cute granny exterior is a pretty evil woman. Oh God, even her house is adorable.
Yeah.
Out there in California.
So do you want to go? Do
Wow.
you want to tell the story?
Please jump in, somebody.
Okay, so basically, she's known as the Death House landlady. She she was
Ooh.
arrested for, I think, was it 9 confirmed murders and 6 unconfirmed murders. So that definitely puts her in the serial killer
Mm-hmm.
category. And basically, her MO, most of her life, was fraud. She basically wrote bad checks, she forged checks. Um, she grew up in California, and her dad died when she was 8. Her mom died the following year, and she was put into an orphanage. So she was quite young when she was put into the system. So that may speak to why she became the way she was.
Right.
Um, she got married at the age of 16. She had a couple of daughters, but for some reason she didn't keep them. She put one up for adoption, and she sent one to live with relatives. And I
Weird.
don't, and I, yeah, I couldn't find any reason why. I did a little bit more digging. I couldn't find any reason why she gave up her children. But me, that checks a sort of an oddness box. Um, she got pregnant again, and she suffered a miscarriage, and her first husband left her. Her first time is in prison was for forging checks, so she must have got herself into some financial problems maybe after the husband left her. She had another daughter who she also gave up for adoption. This time it was from someone who she didn't know very well. I don't know the circumstances. It could have been violent, but again, another child's given up. So over the years, she was basically arrested mostly for forging checks. She was arrested at one point for managing a brothel, um, which and so she was put into prison for 90 days for managing a brothel, and
Oh,
then after she left prison, not having anywhere to go, she lived on the streets and then was immediately picked up for vagrancy and put into prison for another 90 days. So
so you arrest somebody, take away their livelihood, and then arrest them again because they have no livelihood.
yeah, that's a
Essentially.
there's kind of a theme with these 3 women we're doing tonight. Actually, this kind of the system and things like that. So basically, she found work as a nurse's aide. She started caring for disabled and elderly patients, and then she started managing boarding houses. And this is where it actually gets a little bit interesting. She actually bought a 16-bedroom care house. And at the time, the social workers thought this was fantastic because she took in like really, really bad cases. So the drug addicts and people that basically social services really couldn't help very much. Um, so the first suspicious death happened. Her friend, who was her business partner, moved in with her, and then shortly afterwards died mysteriously of an
Overdose, yeah.
of an overdose of codeine and acetaminophen, which is basically Tylenol. Now,
Wait, hold on. Codeine and Tylenol?
She was
yeah,
subletting a space from Dorothea, and
yeah,
it was shortly after that. Yeah, she died of an OD of codeine and Tylenol, which would,
Oh,
be just like,
mixed together. Yeah, that's it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
it
yeah,
would be just like a morphine OD or a opiate OD.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen. Yeah, I know those blended drug. Yeah.
And
you
I
guys.
guess they ended up ruling that one a suicide.
Yeah, she told the police that her friend was really depressed because her friend's husband was terminally ill, and that's why she killed herself. And the police was like, "Okay, yeah." Sounds okay to us.
And how old was Dorothy at this point,
That was
roughly?
1982. Um, I didn't see the.
I'm
I'm gonna
just
have to look
curious
that up again.
if she was already in the little old lady category, where
Well,
the police would
she was
say,
Yeah,
born in
"Oh,
she was
sweet
born
little lady, of course she's telling
yeah,
me the
born
truth."
in 1929.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So
yeah, totally.
yeah, yep.
So
Holy shit, she's
probably
really close to my mom's age.
so here we have this sort of little, well, like we call her a cute little old lady who's running a boarding house. She's taking in some of the worst cases from social services. She's There are varying views. Some people who stayed at the boarding house or who know of her work there said that she was really stingy, and basically everybody's checks that came in from the government would have to go through her because they were all getting like sort of disability checks and things like that. And
Right?
she would open up checks and bank them all and save them all, and then just dole out sort of like spending money to her patients. And I think I saw it was estimated that she was making about $5,000 a month. And back then, I
That's a
checked the
lot of money back
yeah,
then.
I actually checked it, and that was it, in today's money. It's $36,000 a month she was banking, just from all her patients.
So we're talking in the
Holy.
80s.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's adjusted for inflation and all that sort of stuff. It would be worth approximately thirty-six
So,
thousand dollars.
so just as a point of reference, as a computer professional in the late 80s, the most I was making was $2,000 a month.
Oh wow!
Just
And
for,
you had some pretty in need skills at the time as well,
yeah,
huh? Well, she was. I don't know. I couldn't find anything to say she was living an like a extravagant lifestyle. She was, I don't know. I don't know what she was doing with this money. And when you look at the pictures of her, she doesn't
yeah,
look like she's dripping in jewelry or that sort of thing. So,
right?
I we really don't know what she was doing with the money, but it was a hell of a lot of money.
That is a lot of money for those days, definitely.
So, basically, she was doing that, but also at the same time, a few weeks after her colleague, her business partner, supposedly committed suicide. The police were called back because there was a pensioner that was living at her boarding house who said that she was drugging him and stealing from him. And she actually was convicted of theft, three charges of theft, and she was sentenced to 5 years in jail. So someone obviously recognized that there was something going on with this woman. And at least she was put into prison for this time. And the accusation was taken seriously. While she was there, she started writing. She became a pen pal with someone called Everson Gilmouth, and they must have got quite cozy. She must have been she must have written quite the letter because he was waiting to pick her up when she got out of prison.
Wow.
She moved
Um,
in and they opened a joint bank account after her
yep,
release in 85.
yep,
How old was
um,
this dude?
I was just looking for that. 77.
yep.
Oh, okay. So to him, she was, hot stuff, hot young babe.
Must have been, yeah. I don't know. That's a whole other show, isn't it? People who write to prisoners and start up relationships about over the
Did I tell you? Did I tell you what my daughter said after
no.
watching the Bundy movie? And I was in the kitchen and she comes in after watching it and she goes, you know, she started talking about all the fangirls at the trial, the groupies. She goes,
Right.
and this
Hmm.
is my daughter, she's in her mid 30s, and she goes, women are fucking crazy. He said, why do they
Yeah.
do this shit? Like, I don't know.
Oh God, yeah. So I've heard all kinds of very odd pen pal sort of stories.
It's really bizarre, and obviously from this story, it goes both ways.
Yeah, I don't know how they got in touch, but they were making wedding plans. They moved in together,
Jesus,
opened joint banking. They were going to get married. And then
how did
so
that even
Dorothy,
start? Right?
well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I get well. He must have written to her.
Must have. Yeah.
Like, how you doing? How's prison? I don't know. Like, how do you even write a letter like that?
Oh, you know what? You know what? I mean, we have no data, we have no documentation for this, but a lot of churches have pen pal programs for prisoners.
Oh, right. Okay.
Could
And
have
he was,
started there.
he was, yeah, he was older and retired, so that could, yeah, that could have been that. Yeah. Well, she must have, like I said, she must have written a pretty hot letter because he was waiting to marry her when she got out of prison. So yeah, they moved in together. They opened up a joint bank account. Um, Dorothea hired a handyman to do some work around the house, and then later she paid him the money he was owed, and she actually gave him a red pickup truck, which was exactly the same pickup truck that her pen pal boyfriend had used to pick her up. And
Well, the
she
same make and
the same,
model
same
as
make and
his
model
car.
as his, and the color as his car. Um, and she said it
Hmm.
would belong to her. She said it belonged to a boyfriend who was in Los Angeles who didn't need it anymore, and he was welcome to it. So she basically asked this handyman to build her a giant, basically coffin-shaped box. She said
Pure
she was going to use it.
coincidence that it's that shape.
Yeah, she said she was going to use it for storage of a bunch of stuff she didn't need,
Like a
um,
boyfriend.
like a boyfriend. Yeah. Um, and still the handyman is like, okay, I'll do it for you. Like, he gets the truck, he gets the money. And then she's getting him to move it to a storage facility, and apparently there's this sort of like this known dumping place for household goods where people, just dump stuff. And they're driving along, and she goes, oh, well, you know what, I don't want to put it into storage, I'm never going to need it, let's just dump it here. So he picks the box up and he carries it and he dumps it. And a few weeks later, someone discovers that it's actually not books and knickknacks in there, but Royal Dalton figures, but actually a body.
Wow. Is that
um,
is that what got her caught?
she, uh, she
Must have.
still
I
no,
mean,
because they
And
were.
she was still housing elderly people for quite some time after that, which is interesting with her boarding house because it was actually visited by government agents quite often.
hmm.
And she had an order not to handle government checks or
Yeah,
be in touch with elderly people.
yeah,
But
but still, like, so there's like, what the hell
and
is the
yet
system
and yet
doing?
there
yeah,
she is doing both of those things.
yeah.
So, so the
So
body in the box wasn't identified. So no one knew it was actually her boyfriend, and she kept collecting his checks because she was getting them. They were getting sent to the house, and she was writing to his family saying, "Oh, he's ill. He can't write to you, but he's fine." So she kept collecting his checks. In the meantime, she's also running the boarding house, and she's collecting all the money from all the patients that she's got. Apparently, she she kept going, and she actually managed to bring in an extra 40 people, like the 40.
what?
um yeah, and
So hold on. This woman gives the handyman, "Hey, would you mind dumping this coffin, incidentally coffin-shaped box that you built for me?" And he goes, "Sure." And he takes it out, and somebody discovers, "Oh, it's not household items. It's a fucking body." And everybody goes, "Yeah, does deal with old people. It's no big deal."
they never, I
Really?
guess, I don't know, no one connected it to her, and the body was so badly decomposed that I guess they couldn't make an identification. This was 86, so I don't know what forensics was like back then. I don't know, I guess they
How
were still using
about just
records.
just the trail of, you know, ownership of the fucking box?
I guess I don't know what happened to the handyman. I don't know why they, maybe he didn't come forward, or I don't know. But
It's just
I've
weird,
just looked it up, and the box was 6 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet. I mean, come on.
right?
Well, and that's the only one of the first handymen that she worked with. It was a little
Oh,
while after that she adopted, in quotes, a homeless alcoholic man by the name of Chief to
Yeah,
serve as a handyman around her property.
yeah.
She had him dig in the basement and remove soil and garbage. And he,
was he a tall mute Native American guy.
That I don't know. But he did put in a new concrete slab in the basement right before he disappeared.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. So
So
she did not like paying for her home repairs.
apparently not.
Well, that's one way to deal with it, I suppose.
But
Wow.
I think what ultimately sort
Was
of
this?
got people on her radar when around the time that she started talking to Chief and sort of adopting him, neighbors started to get suspicious.
Well, this went
But
on for two.
in
This still went on for 2 years. So after the body was discovered in the box, and after Chief disappeared, it went on for 2 years. And finally, a social worker who was actually still in touch with one of the patients that was living at the boarding house reported that her patient was missing, and that's when the police finally started investigating. That was in 1988, so it was 2 years after.
it was Alvaro Montoya,
Yeah, but
schizophrenic tenant of her
it was
housing.
2 years after the boyfriend in the box incident. I mean,
It was after he failed to show up for meetings that his social worker got on the case. So
yeah.
Wow.
And then apparently, when the police showed up and they looked around, they saw some dirt, fresh dirt in the backyard, and they started digging. And that's when they found a lot of people. They found 7 bodies dug up in her backyard.
she
Sorry,
wasn't initially a
buried.
suspect either. When the investigation began, she wasn't initially a suspect.
I know. I love this story. Did you know the
Oh,
story? Can I tell it?
please. I got to hear
Okay.
this.
Okay, so she's not a suspect, but there's police all over the house, and she's in the house, and she kind of goes, "Well, you know what? I've run out of coffee. Can I please go and buy a cup of coffee at a nearby hotel?" And the police are like, "Yeah, little old lady, you're so sweet. Look at those big eyes. Go ahead, go get your coffee." So
Being
she
all
runs
nice
over,
and
all nice, and yeah, so she
attentive.
grabs her, she grabs her little bag, and yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back later, gentlemen. And then she goes to L.A. She flees to L.A.
Oh, man.
Where it gets better. It gets better. So she flees to LA, and she's in a bar, and she's been kind of known for, picking up old men in bars and trying to, get their pensions and stuff. And she hits on an old guy in a bar. Unfortunately, he recognizes her and reports her to the police. But she's still trying it.
Jesus.
Like the nerve of this woman.
Oh, but yeah, you think, I mean, for a normal person, yes. But she's obviously a sociopath.
Plus,
And
that's
Yeah.
damn near a 6 hour trip. I was just curious of the distance from Sacramento to LA.
6 hours, but like by car.
386 miles, 5 hours, 41 minutes down the I 5.
without
God.
traffic.
Yeah.
But the thing is that sociopaths, psychopaths, they have the game that they have to play. So, as crazy as it sounds that she just dives right in and starts again,
She has to.
it's like a compulsion.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So, of course she's gonna. I mean, some people are a lot better at holding off the urges for longer. BTK being a notable example.
Right.
Um,
Well, you would think
other
that she
others
would be
others not so
better.
much.
You would think that she would be better because there's no doubt that age figures in to how well they can control that stuff,
But
but it's not obviously the only
What
variable.
right.
you reckon older serial killers have more control of their urges?
Yeah, I would say so. If you look at ones like
Well,
BTK.
if they've been trying to control them, maybe.
Mm.
Okay, can I just throw something in as I mean, and
As please
I don't know how old
throw
you guys are, but
throw.
as a person getting up there, can I just say if I killed someone, I probably wouldn't have the strength to do it again for at least a good few days because my body wouldn't let me. My muscles would be killing me. I probably pull something. I twist my ankle. I know it. I would physically need a few days to recover. So no matter how much the brain would be willing, the flesh would be weak. So I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. Old people get hurt more.
That
Well,
may very well be. I was just remarking at it with looking at her, how she was, so wanting to do something again that she takes off like she did.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense as well. Yeah, but I'm also thinking with older people, they have less time. So you think they really want to get it done as much as possible, but then the body's sort of holding them back a little bit. So I don't know. It could explain timing. I'm
Yeah,
just
but
throwing it out there.
that logic could also apply to their driving, and you don't see old people rushing in terms of their driving. You
well,
see them slow.
It's because we're
the
terrified of
reflexes are
younger
bad.
drivers.
You'd think they'd
And
want to get there fast, but nope.
no, well, yeah, you think so. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, okay. Well, it's because we don't trust you youngins driving anymore. You don't need a signal anymore. Jesus. Um, anyway, so basically, she was sent to prison for the rest of her life, and she actually died of natural cause. Apparently, she was a pretty good prisoner. No incidents, and she died in 2011, and she was
Because
82 years old.
nobody had anything to take in prison.
Yeah, yeah, I guess no
Oh,
pensions in prison.
right. So it made it easy for her to behave. Plus, they were all
Uh,
tougher than her.
Other than that, I think I sent you a link. There was one reporter who managed to get in and sort of get friendly with her. And this is another just hilarious freaking story about this woman. They eventually collaborated on a book called Cooking with a Serial
Oh,
Killer.
yes.
And you can actually buy it. It's okay. So it says it includes lengthy interviews, almost 50 recipes, and various pieces of prison art sent by Dorothea. So that's on Amazon actually.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Yeah, you can buy it.
I'm gonna
Cook
post the
with
link in
Yeah,
the chat.
if you want to know the recipes Dorothea was serving her husbands before she killed them, this is your chance.
Why did they should have called it killer recipes?
Ah, yeah. It might send the wrong message though. Little bit of arsenic in your cookies, and Bob's your uncle. The job's done.
Man,
Sorry, that was also a reference to an old movie. If you got that.
arsenic and old lace.
Oh, I was thinking the Jodie Foster movie.
Oh,
Silence of the Lambs?
No, there's one she did when she was very little. I think it was a little girl who lived down the lane, or the house at the end of the street, or one of these ones.
oh, okay, yeah.
She lives on her own, and they want to take her into care, and she doesn't want to go into care, and she actually eventually poisons them with arsenic laced cookies. So, anyway, it's a good movie. It's worth looking up. But
Not all
I
little
think
old
the
ladies are nice little old ladies. Get that through your head, people.
but even her arrest picture that you just showed, she just looks. I mean, she's lost some weight, obviously, but she looks like someone's done her hair, and she's looking very polite.
Yeah,
Uh,
and boom, she kills you.
yeah, well, only if you have a pension. If you don't have your pension yet, you're safe.
Ah, there you go. So, guys, get rid of all your money before you date little old ladies,
Pretty much it. Yeah,
or really young ones,
really young ones, or
or
sometimes
or all the ones in between.
ones, or yeah.
All right,
Okay.
let's move on to an old timey killer lady, Belle.
You,
Hell's
you,
Bell.
I got to do Dorothea, so thank you. You can do
Uh,
Belle.
Hell's Bell.
Tell us about Belle, Wes.
Oh, just a second here. She was born a Norwegian immigrant
Did
to
she
the
grow up?
United States.
Did she ever grow out of being Norwegian? Some people do.
It's a very hard thing to do. Trust
Yeah.
me, I'm one of them. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
so
um,
you're gonna stick up for her.
1859, Norwegian American immigrated to the United States and found her way to LaPorte, Indiana. Which I don't know. Did we get a map for that?
I did not. You missed my story about how I totally forgot we were on tonight until like a few minutes before the show. I was like, oh shit, I gotta get all these pictures up.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I was still kind of
Oh,
running behind because of the tech goof I was telling you about when you tried
Yeah.
to call me.
yeah, guys,
But,
that could really attract listeners. You're so professional.
oh, I know.
We made it.
We did, yes. Okay.
Just kidding. Oh, that's right over there by Gary. It's not far from Chicago, actually.
Okay.
LaPorte, right on Lake Michigan. But let's see, she moved there. Like I said,
Yeah,
I'm still running a bit behind here.
she
It's
actually
okay.
had a very cool. She actually had a very cool name. Her full name was Brunhild Paulsdottir Storset. The Brunhild is to throw a little history at you, is a very famous character in Norse mythology. Paul's daughter
Mm-hmm.
basically means the daughter of Paul, so her
Yes.
father's name and Paul, and then Storset was her last name. But I love the Brunhild. I love anybody with the name Brunhild. But yeah,
In
she was
Bryn.
Selbu, Norway, the daughter of a stonemason. Yeah, but yeah, what the thing with her was a series of suspicious fires and deaths on her farm. Many of these resulting in insurance awards. And she would
well.
also
Well, there's the
jump.
thing with her. There's another thing with her husband. Now, her and the other and Dorothea have something in common. So basically, she um okay. So her and her husband had a candy shop, and that burned down mysteriously. And their home burned down at the same time mysteriously. And then there was a so basically she was transferring over her insurance from one insurance company to her husband was transferring it. So you know, like when your insurance is up for renewal, there's like an overlap of like a day when one policy ends and the other one starts. Well, her husband had a mysterious accident the day that those two policies coincided. So she managed to get the money from two different policies for her death.
Whoa. That's an amazing coincidence.
Yeah, apparently a meat grinder fell on him when he was reaching for something on a high shelf. Poor guy. I mean, the luck. It just the bad
That's just
the
terrible luck. Oh my
and he
word.
and he and he died on the day that both insurance policies were still in effect. I mean, wow.
No inquiry and no charges filed in that either
Ugh. Sorry,
at
Well,
guys.
all.
I mean,
Sorry.
Well,
I
where the
love
hell's the insurance adjuster with something like that?
I
Yeah,
love
where's
that.
the investigator? That's
his
Sorry,
so
Wes. Go
weird.
on.
meat
Sorry, Wes. I
grinders
took
were
over.
falling off of shelves onto people like, like snowflakes in those days.
It was like a hazard back in the old
Yeah,
days.
yeah. I mean,
Well, her husband's family even demanded an inquiry, and they didn't bother to investigate it. So that's weird to me.
Well, she had just gotten two life insurance policies, so maybe she was greasing some palms.
Huh?
oh, well, there's that possibility.
Because they were known in the community, they did have a very lovely candy shop. So candy could mean something else.
That was around the time as well where Belle had two children whom she poisoned in infancy for the insurance money.
What?
There's two others, yeah. Two kids that she killed for the insurance money around that same time. Several
Whoa.
more deaths after that. Well, we had a total of 40 actually.
Yeah, well, sorry, I took over with that story, but just because I thought it was hilarious, the meat grind. Never mind.
That
So
is a
go,
great
Terry.
story. That is great.
Keep telling, keep going.
But
Oh,
yeah,
wait. Can I back up for just
yeah,
one
go
second?
ahead.
I don't think we ever got a number on the granny, Dorothea. What was her final tally?
I thought
Uh,
the I thought the
she,
high end of that was 17.
oh, okay, so it says her total count reached 9 confirmed murders and 6
Yeah.
murders. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. All right. So onward.
Yeah,
The
40
murderous
victims on the
Norwegian lady.
property. Let's see, where were we?
So
Yeah, they had
she killed her own children for insurance money.
she did. So they made 2 of the 40. Several more unexplained deaths followed, including the infant daughter of her new husband, Peter Gunnis, and
Well,
followed by Peter himself. I'm not sure how
whoa.
she killed him that time, but um, her adopted daughter would be found on the property, burned.
We have occasionally talked about women who have murdered their own children in various circumstances, but this is the first that I recall that we've talked about a mother who has murdered their own children for money.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it just had me thinking there how a lot of the times back then people would be assuming that they would lose a few, you know,
It's
and that's
very
why they would
true.
try to keep
It's
birth
very
rates higher.
my own paternal grandmother lost half of her children.
Oh
Oh
wow.
wow, dang.
Um, yeah, and she had a lot.
Mm,
Uh, so yes, it was a very real. It was a very real thing.
hmm
The
Oh,
infant
absolutely.
mortality rates were crazy bad.
And man, what was that I was watching the other day that talked about how the whole idea of the birthday was a modern convention because of that.
Well, I know many cultures in the world. I know Hawaii is definitely one where the celebration of the first birthday in particular was a big deal because that meant the child survived the
hmm
first year, which was a monumental achievement. It meant the odds of the child growing to adulthood were pretty good.
Yeah, this what I was watching focused just on the United States with that, but I can't remember what it was now.
Hmm.
But yeah, at any rate,
Yeah,
um,
there's a lot of cultures where the first birthday is the most important birthday.
hmm
Even today, I mean, it's carried on that tradition.
oh yeah, that would definitely make sense. But yeah, after Peter's death, she began meeting wealthy men through a lovelorn column, writing to the paper and picking out her next victims.
Oh, remind me what year this is. It's
This was, what year did
roughly,
they move here?
roughly. I mean,
1884, roughly.
19th century Tinder.
Yeah, yeah. But let's see.
Hot
The-
Norwegian babe seeks
See,
wealthy, wealthy sugar daddy.
seeks poor schmuck to kill and
And
burn and bury.
yeah.
Um, let's see. You have them in order here. John Moo, Henry Gerholt, Olaf Svenherud, Ole B. Budsberg, Olaf Lindblom, Andrew Hagelin, and that's
Oh
all I
my
have on
God,
the
they're all
list.
Scandinavians.
Yeah.
It must have been the area because she also married Scandinavian men, so I think it was just certain
She
pockets.
may not have spoken very good English.
Yeah, that's likely. And you're talking again about an area that would have been, growing at this time, being not
Yeah,
far from Chicago in
Yeah.
Indiana.
right.
Um, let's see. It was in 1908 when Hagelin's brother became suspicious and Gunnis's luck seemed to be running out. Her farmhouse burnt to the ground. I think we have a picture of that actually.
Yeah, it comes up there right now, just right now.
Yep, that is it. That is the fire
I
that
mean,
ultimately did
hole in the
her in.
ground.
So that
It
there's
burned
another hired.
good.
So there's another hired hand story here. So she had this guy, the Lamphere guy, was the hired hand and apparently occasional lover, and he would be the one that would place these ads for her. And apparently, he said when they investigated the fire that she told him to burn down the farmhouse with her children inside. Now, I don't.
What?
Yeah. He also said that the body that they thought was Gunness was actually a murder victim and that she had actually escaped the fire. It wasn't actually her inside.
Oh,
hmm Yeah, they identified actually 3 of the 4 skeletons in that fire as her foster children.
Oh, okay, so she did. So
Wow.
the are inside, yeah. So apparently the police were notified because the brother of one of the victims that you just mentioned said that he might.
Higgling. Yeah.
Yeah, he said he might drop. He said he was going to investigate his brother's disappearance, and she panicked. And then apparently, either she burned down the house herself, or she asked this handyman to do it. We don't know if she was inside. It's one of those things like I saw Elvis, but there were a lot of sightings of her apparently afterwards.
Well, and the weird thing about that was the body that was actually believed to be Gunnis was missing its skull.
Oh well, that's weird.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, heads don't just get up and walk away.
Yeah. I'm going with that probably wasn't her.
Yeah.
But let's see. Yeah, Ray Lampier arrested for murder and arson on May 22nd, 1908. Found guilty of the arson but cleared of the murder.
Well,
Wow.
He was the one who actually revealed most of what we know about Gunnis and her crimes. And
So
that
she so
includes building that house down.
so she just ran off and was never heard from again?
see, that's I'm finding that a bit odd because if there's such
How does somebody like that just stop?
yeah yeah that's what I'm thinking.
Well, and that's a good point, but then you're also looking at the time period where we really didn't know that much about this type of crime. And it would have been a hell of a lot easier for her to hide in that period than, let's say even the 1970s.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
And she probably had enough money to just keep on the run.
Yeah, she cleared out her bank accounts before this happened.
I mean, she collected on a whole bunch of accounts and policies.
Hmm.
So she might have just spent the rest of her life just traveling,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, she could have went somewhere where it would have been even easier to
right?
um, hide, even going back to Norway, back to Scandinavia.
Yeah,
True,
that's true.
true. I mean, yeah, it's not hard. You get up above the Arctic Circle in Norway, and it's you know really easy to live all by yourself.
Yeah, but it's a
Yeah,
lot hard. It's a lot harder to bury bodies up there, with the tundra.
It is very true, but you have plenty of scavengers at hand.
This is true. Yeah, just leave them out in the woods.
Yeah.
yeah, you have less people to hunt from though, less
Yeah,
of a
that's true.
population density, definitely.
You know, if her concern, if the whole point of this was, financial security, I'm wondering if would it be possible for her to have reached a point where it's like, I almost got caught. I got enough. I'm just gonna stop. I mean, that would be like a rational perspective on it. Could
Sure.
It
could it
does.
could somebody who has that mentality and that history actually reach a point like that? Is that possible?
That's that eternal battle of, impulse versus the will once you get down to it. And I don't know. I mean, even with BTK, he was trying and, he just couldn't do it.
Well, but she almost got caught, and that might have been, a motivating factor. Is like, you know, if I do this again, people might, connect the dots no matter where I'm at.
Okay, so you know how they say sometimes, and I think we'll talk about this with the next person we're going to talk about. There may be a triggering event
Yeah,
that starts behavior. Are you
right.
suggesting there's a triggering event that might stop the behavior?
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe,
That might be cool.
like, I barely escaped with my neck, and I've got all this cash. Let's just call that good, and let's just chill out and live a happy life the rest as happy as you can be if you're a psychopathic murderer.
I
If your
would be
motive is
very skeptical of it, but
if your
could be
motive is pure,
wrong.
yeah, if your motive is purely financial, then yeah, she's probably okay with that. But she was killing her children, and even if you want them out of the way for monetary reasons, like the insurance, you've still got to have something wrong with you to kill your own children.
Oh, I think that's very true. Yeah. Because a lot of very fucked up, crazy ass women do not kill their children.
Yeah.
So it
Huh.
takes some special kind of screw loose to do that.
Okay, I think we might have to file this one away with Elvis was captured by aliens and does the Loch Ness Monster exist?
Because we don't know where she went to.
Not a clue.
Yeah,
Might make an interesting book, though.
yeah.
Okay.
Maybe she turned up in a pyramid somewhere.
Maybe
Aliens took her.
maybe
Put her
she's
in.
buried next to Jimmy Hoffa.
It's always aliens, ancient aliens.
It's
It's
ancient.
always Jimmy Hoffa.
Jimmy Hoffa knew about the lizard people, and that's why they.
That's why they took him out. Okay, I didn't realize. Wow.
Yeah, he found out, and he was going to expose them.
Well, I knew he knew too much, but I just didn't realize that's what he knew. Wow.
Yeah,
I
I,
learned so much
I,
on this show.
I may have said too much.
Yeah, you better yeah, okay.
We
Next.
next.
Hey, the Illuminati will come and kill you.
Well, not me. I mean, they might take away my membership card or revoke some privileges or something, but you
Hey,
I can always pull strings if that happens, so don't worry.
I had someone DM me from the Illuminati asking me to join, so they could be listening to me. And I'm on this show, so they could be listening to you. So that's yeah, just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I really did get
The
a DM from Illuminati, though. I wasn't kidding about that.
Illuminati.com.
It was the best day of my life.
Man, I'm jealous.
I think I still have the message. I should send it to you. It's awesome.
So, coming up, coming up, we have a very interesting case. So interesting, it was made into a movie.
Indeed, it was.
And we've wanted to talk about this woman for basically since the show started. And it's finally her time.
I find it, just thinking about that movie, I found it pretty astounding how much of a dead ringer Charlize Theron is for Eileen Wuornos. She really does look like her.
Well, with a lot of weight put on and makeup and it's
Well, sure.
I mean Charlize is not easy to make look plain.
Mm-hmm.
Just gonna say that.
Oh, absolutely.
But she did a great the makeup and costume and hair department did a great job making her look like her. And who are we talking about?
Eileen Wuornos murdered at least 7 people between 1980 and 1990, down in Florida mostly.
Yep.
Florida woman versus Florida man. It would be an interesting fight to the death.
Yeah, she's got the numbers on her side though.
Yeah, this is true. This is definitely true. But then I think Florida man kind of has crazy on his side, even more so than Eileen. Um, and you look at her upbringing. Never
Yeah.
really knew her parents. Her dad spent time in mental hospitals for child molestation,
Oh,
and she
Jesus.
didn't have much of the genetic lottery on her side to begin with.
He also had
Unfortunately,
he also had schizophrenia, apparently.
I would assume that's why they put him in there. I didn't see the illness on my source here, but Let's see. When she was 4, she and her brother were sent to live with grandparents. And she actually spent time at a home for unwed mothers in her teens and dropped out of school, turned to prostitution.
All right, so what's the time frame we're talking about here?
That is going to be in the 80s, 89 to 1990, when she's actually killing people. As far as I can tell, her first arrest is 1974, which was for DWI and
Oh,
for firing a gun from a moving vehicle.
oh, at someone?
So I didn't see that part. I think it was just reckless discharge of a weapon, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Subsequently, she was arrested numerous times. Charges that include armed robbery, forging checks, and auto theft. And by the late 80s, she was basically a drifter, working the highways down into Florida as a prostitute and just hitchhiking.
Like a truck stop hooker?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big part of it. Anywhere that she could find somebody that wanted her services and turn a buck. So,
So how long was she working at that profession before she
you,
before she started killing?
I would say maybe 10 years
Oh,
from what I
substantial
was
amount
looking at.
substantial amount of time.
And that would lead me to believe as well that there was most definitely violence in that time period. When you're talking about what she's doing, I
Well,
wonder how much
when
of
she
it wasn't building up.
well, when she was first hooking, she'd actually got kicked out of the house when she got pregnant. Apparently, she got pregnant by a friend of her grandfather's. And then he kicked her out of the
What?
and she didn't have anywhere to live. So she was actually living out in the woods, like on the edge of town. And apparently, all the townspeople knew she was living there. No one actually offered to do anything for her. So she was hooking for money to like buy food and stuff. And then she was like living kind of rough and she did this for nearly a year, I think.
So she was not socking away money for retirement. She was.
No, no. She
No,
and then she finally moved down to Florida.
survival.
Yeah.
I'm gonna coin a term: subsistence hooking.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's basically what it was.
And then basically the weather was too bad and she moved down to Florida and then still that's when she, continued with the hooking.
Wow.
But yeah, I thought I'd throw that in because I think that's
Yeah.
shows a little bit like a little bit of a background.
But yeah, 7 different motorists, and they think she killed actually an 8th, but yeah, convicted of 7.
Convicted of 7.
Yeah, left their bodies along the highways of Florida and South Georgia.
So she. All right. So walk
Or
me through her MO.
that would, man, I'm gonna have to find that too.
I
Like I
mean,
said, I'm still kind of playing catch up a bit.
it's okay. It's okay. I was I was so unprepared tonight. I almost didn't have the pictures ready for the show.
Yeah,
So that you know anything about these things is you got me beat. That's why I play the ignorant host who doesn't know shit about these people. Because
I
I'm
did
good at
watch
it.
I did watch a lot of the documentaries that were made about her just to hear things from her point of view.
Yeah.
The ones I watched were the Nick Broomfield. He did two of them. One was Eileen selling a serial killer, and then there was another one that he did as a follow up to it. And he got access to her in prison, and she kind of flip flopped around a little bit on. You were talking about the MO, and she said that basically what she would do is she would get into the car, kind of decide, if, kind of like get a feel for the situation, and then basically they start talking about prices or whatever, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd be a client. But then at other times she would be like, well, I thought this guy was nice. I got in the car with him. He tried to rape me. And uh, I, she always had a gun on her, like always had a gun on her. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the arrests in her from younger years as well. She had a lot of gun issues. But she would say, oh, well, he tried to rape me. So then I pulled out my gun and I shot him.
Well, and that's the thing when you look at what she's doing, it adds in a whole lot of gray areas there. I
Yeah.
would there's got to be, I would think, even more violence in that than what we know.
Well,
And that gets back to what we've talked about before, SK, with it being a black market thing. It's shady, it's underworld,
yeah,
and
yeah. And the thing that the people, fucking abolitionists, um think they're protecting the women by making this shit illegal, and they're doing the exact opposite.
yep, I
Um,
couldn't agree more.
the making prostitution illegal puts women in danger.
It absolutely does, and it makes me wonder what would have happened if somebody like Eileen Warnos could have went to the cops if she was
Yeah,
accosted by a John and said,
absolutely.
"Hey, this guy assaulted me."
Right.
Would we have these 7 bodies on our hands? I don't know.
Well, particularly with Eileen, there's a lot of what if this happened or what if that happened? What if she hadn't got kicked out? What if she hadn't got pregnant by her grandfather's, friend? There's all kinds of stuff like that.
Sure. Well, I
The,
mean,
the,
we all have
before you
that
even
kind
get
of,
to the
we all have
prostitution,
that,
yeah.
whether or not we've murdered anybody, we all have those times, and we've all reflected back on them. What if things had gone different at this point in my life? Um, uh, we don't all, I mean, an unfortunate number of people do experience violence in their lives against their persons, and an unfortunate number of those are women and children. They do not all go around, eking out vengeance. Thank,
No,
thankfully.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Well, and one thing I don't think we mentioned yet there was the hotel maid that
yeah,
Warnos lived with became her lover and her partner in crime, Tyria Moore.
oh, she
It
had a
was
partner.
in 1987 she moved in with her. They became lovers and partners in crime.
yeah.
So
Fact,
this kind of goes into what I was wondering is like if she gets in the John's car and shoots him and dumps his body, then what? Right? She's got his car.
Mm-hmm.
She's got to
Yeah,
do something with
absolutely.
that. So having a partner that kind of helps with that idea.
well, that's also
Yeah.
one of the people that I don't think they could pin a murder conviction on because they didn't have a body. Her and Moore had actually been seen driving the guy's car. Um, so yeah, sorry. I just remembered when I was watching the documentaries on her. One of the other things she also said that she would do, and depending on which interview you read, she changes her mind and she changes her story like all the time. But one thing she did say was that they would find a guy, they would rob him, and they would kill him because they didn't want any witnesses to the robbery. So
Yeah,
she kind of,
that is such a bizarre. I you run across this murdering potential witnesses concept a fair amount. Like oh, we don't want to get caught for rape or robbery or whatever, so let's kill people because that'll sound better being on trial for murder.
well, I suppose if you're in that frame of mind, and I think she's been tested, and we could get into that later when we start talking about what the hell was she thinking. Um, she just didn't think she was going to get caught.
Right. That
And you have
I think that is a thing, right? That
and
is
you
a
have
thing.
and you have less chance of getting caught if you kill the person you've done the crime to. So therefore, problem solved.
Dead men tell no tales.
Yeah,
Right.
seriously.
Except with forensics, they really do.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, with that one guy, they never actually did find his body. So that's kind of, she managed it once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the forensics with much of that would have been kind of in its infancy. I mean,
Yeah,
this would have been even
True.
before, DNA.
yeah,
We're talking the late 80s, so.
Right. Yeah. It still was pretty new. DNA had not been developed as a forensic tool yet.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
I mean,
But
I mean,
there's
basically,
still,
what could they do? Blood type and fingerprints.
um,
yeah.
yeah, maybe
That's it.
fibers, maybe at
Yeah,
that.
fibers.
Fibers, hair, nails, that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
I don't think it was that. Yeah, no, like it wasn't that developed.
Uh, yeah, they
Wow.
went on to kill 3 more men before Eileen was picked up on a warrant after yet another fight in a biker bar. She did that a lot too.
She did.
So,
Sorry. Yeah.
This is really harshing my belief in the criminal mastermind.
yeah. Yeah.
It just is. Every criminal we talk about just kind of disproves that concept.
What you think they're all like Lex Luthor or something?
There's got to be one, but then I suppose we wouldn't know about him, would we? If
Well,
he
that's
was
true.
that good.
Oh, that's even more frightening.
But yeah, they booked Eileen, and Moore had left her by that time, going back to her home in Pennsylvania. And that was
Well,
where
okay,
she was apprehended the day after they booked Eileen.
so
Oh, she's so she.
Moore was horrible. Oh, sorry. Go on. You say what Moore did.
Yeah, please
But
tell me. I'm glad she
yeah,
got picked up too.
it didn't take long for her to flip on Eileen. Um, let's see, in the days immediately following the arrest, Moore was back in Florida, staying at a motel the police had rented for her. There, she made calls to Warnos in an attempt to elicit a confession that could be used against her.
Hmm.
Let's see.
And after a few phone calls, she kept saying things like, "The police are always visiting me. They think I did it.
They
What
pin
am I
all
going
the blame on me. Yeah.
to do? They're going to blame me." So finally, yeah, Eileen, they have her on the phone because it was all recorded, saying, "Well, I admitting it, I did it." Um,
Yeah, she would be basically begging her to go over the story step by step
yeah,
in the calls.
Well, while Eileen's in jail
Yeah, essentially.
yeah,
and not realizing that they're just listening into every fucking thing, they don't even need a goddamn warrant to do that because she's in jail.
Yeah. Another little chip in the master criminal
Yeah.
edifice there.
Wow.
So
well,
she
remember,
confessed to several of the murders, but insisted over the phone that the killings Moore had not known about were all attempted rapes. And
she also claimed that she was in love with Moore, and she actually, right up until her death, she claimed that she was, still in love with Moore. So I don't know. I guess stupidity aside, if your loved one calls you and
Yeah.
you want to talk to them, you're not, your first thought isn't going to be, "Oh, I can't say things because the police are listening." Your first thought is going to be, "Oh, she's calling me, thank God."
Yeah.
there was some interesting stuff when she was in prison for the murders. Um, let's see. Eileen seemed to be having a harder time inside than she had outside. As she sat in her jail cell, she gradually came to believe that her food was being spat in or otherwise contaminated with body fluids. She repeatedly went on hunger strikes. She refused to eat meals prepared while various individuals were in the jail and assumingly working in the kitchen.
You know,
So she's
the problem with being paranoid is you could be right and nobody will believe you.
Well,
Yeah, I kind of
I
doubt
mean,
she was about that, but
I kind of joking about it, but it's actually a true statement, right? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't out to get you.
oh yeah.
but
Oh no, most definitely.
she also claimed in an interview though that the cell was rigged. There was something behind the mirror. She claimed that when a guy came to put the mirror in, he showed her a bunch of electronics behind it. And she also claimed that they were using, I think she said they were using sonic waves to manipulate her.
Oh,
So yeah.
that's a real
What
thing. I mean,
the
come on, that's a
schizophrenia that her dad had.
yeah.
I wonder
Yeah,
if she didn't have it too.
yeah, that's what it
It
sounds.
sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Visual hallucinations.
absolutely. That whole idea of thought control is kind of a trademark of
Right,
Yeah,
paranoid schizophrenia.
right.
absolutely.
But yeah, maybe she did have that.
And so let's back that up. If she is a paranoid schizophrenic, you know, how many of these Johns did what she claimed they did?
Yeah, that would definitely put it at the lower end
Yeah.
of any of that.
I'm not saying none of them.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
just saying she's the type to imagine shit.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely. But just because she has paranoid
Does
schizophrenia doesn't
doesn't
make her not guilty either.
no, not at
Not
all.
at all.
Not
It
at all.
has to be affecting your thought processes at the time
And
that the crime occurs.
right
well, it's funny. We
and
were we were talking about something earlier about triggering events, and
yeah.
actually, there's a theory that the first guy that she killed actually did. She she went into a lot of detail, and I watched some trial footage, and she went into a lot of detail about what he actually did to her. And at other times, another time she said she had a lot of time to think about it when she was in her cell, but it seemed very specific. And there's a lot of people that actually think that he really did try to rape her, like quite badly, and that might have triggered the whole killing thing.
Could
So
very
that
well
one may have
be.
been true, but the other ones probably or may not have been.
Yeah. That does make a lot of sense. Um,
But
by the way, at the end of this, I'll tell you about the female murderer that I met.
Oh,
oh, another serial killer connection.
No, not serial killer,
Oh, just
just a
murderer.
one-time murderer.
I see. Oh, you know, one interesting thing about Eileen Mornos is that she was executed. Not a whole
Oh,
lot of women could
Florida.
say that.
Florida.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was during an election cycle down there, so
It would have
Yep.
it would have been voting polls would have been a factor in going through with the execution for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely. It was one of the Bushes running, and he was running on a platform of tougher, being tough on crime.
Was that
Um,
Jeb?
hmm
Was that Jeb
yeah,
at that time?
Jeb, yeah.
yeah. So he was
2002.
Yeah, so he was the one that actually signed the warrant because it had been kind of waiting around, and they were trying to tell her that you know, trying to get her to fight back. And at one point, she said, "Well, she did want to die, and would they please sign the warrant?" And it was all very. She had a sleazy lawyer, and she had a. I'm sure you'll get into that, but she had a sleazy lawyer and a friend who had adopted her as a daughter, and it was a very odd situation. And they convinced her that if she confessed to everything, then she would be good with God, and that she should go ahead and get the execution. And it was all just weird. But yeah,
Whoa,
he actually
that is
signed it. Uh,
that,
he actually signed it a month before the election.
wow.
So it was
Her
very.
official diagnosis was a psychopath with borderline personality disorder.
Borderline personality is a strange thing.
hmm
Um, I've actually I know someone in an former in-law in my family who was diagnosed with that, and it was so bizarre because like in my interactions with her, she was quirky, but really nice and fun, right?
hmm
But my brother had interactions because he was married to her that were much less so, a lot more scheming and diabolic.
Wow.
But I always
Mm.
liked her because I wasn't married to her.
Uh,
You
That
know?
might say something about you, though, more than her.
It could be both. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Hmm.
yeah, her last words were, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all. I'll be back."
Whoa. That is a weird thing to have as your final words.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a bit weird.
Oh, let's do a thing. Let's do a thing. What would your final words be before being executed? And I use executed, and it could be for whatever reason, doesn't matter. Because most people don't know exactly when they're about to die, right?
Yeah, okay. So it's a
Have
plan.
some fun in hell
Yeah.
before the devil knows you're there.
Good one. What about you, Kelly?
Oh, probably something stupid like I shouldn't have had that last sambuca. Because how the hell did I end up here? Man, something went seriously wrong.
Sambuca. It was my great grandmother's favorite drink. The New
God.
Orleans one. She loved Sambuca.
I would do something to make the conspiracy. I'd want to say something that would make the conspiracy theorists and all of the crazy people out there think I knew something. Like some
Oh,
map coordinates and some lingo that would just drive them off the edge of the cliff, right? Like there's some treasure or there's some clue and here's this map coordinate and some shit like that.
we actually played a game like that on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and it was basically, you know how like Viking longships were when they were buried in like the Viking burials, they had like swords and shields and jewelry and everything that they wanted. So we were kind of imagining what we would be buried with, so that we could really, really mess with archaeologists.
Yeah, yeah, like that.
Yeah,
But I'd want to start an entire movement with my final words.
that's it. That's going to take some planning. You're going to have
I
to plan.
well, I mean, if you're on death row, you got the time to really think it out, right?
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Um, so that's what I'd do. I'd really fuck with people's minds. That sounds like a lot of fun.
I, are you? I don't know if this is. I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, but are you allowed to have music playing? Like, can you choose music when you
I
like?
don't think so.
Okay, I just because I thought it might be nice to let if you were able to
Have a
choose your favorite.
soundtrack?
Yeah.
That would be cool. Do you think Charlie Manson was listening to Helter Skelter when he croaked?
He's probably still watching TV like he did for years after getting in.
Yeah.
That's weird. Well, they give you a last meal. Like Eileen's last meal, apparently, I think she had some KFC and chips or French fries.
Oh,
I think that.
you
So,
know what? That's
if they give
actually
you a
not a
last
bad
meal,
call.
yeah, if they give you a last meal, they should probably give you, like last song. Yeah,
Last
I think
playlist.
yeah, I think my last meal would probably be Taco Bell because it gives me such bad indigestion that it wouldn't matter.
You just make a mess of the place, right?
Well, yeah, if I'm going
Why
out, I'm going
not,
out with
right?
bang. Yeah. Anyway, little off topic.
Wow. So, Eileen,
Oh,
man.
can I say if anybody hasn't seen those Nick Broomfield documentaries that he did, they are actually really, really interesting. Because he does get a lot of access to her like one-on-one interviews, except for his camera guy. So anyway, um, and you get she's such a fascinating person to watch. Like she's really, I don't know, it's mesmerizing watching her.
Hmm. And Charlize Theron does a great job portraying her. What was the name of the movie?
Monster.
Monster.
Monster, right. Yeah. If you didn't know it was Charlize, you would not know it from looking at her in this movie. She does,
Wow.
and she really portrays her, I think, in a very um, empathetic way. Not necessarily sympathetic, but empathetic.
Oh, wow. Oh, do you know? I don't know if you watch American Horror Story, but they did the hotel
Yeah.
um season. They did hotel. They had a an episode towards the end of the season called Devil's Night, where they had all the serial killers got to come back to life for one, like, will come back as ghosts for one
Oh,
night.
okay.
And they had Lily Ray playing Eileen, and it was actually really good. She did a great job.
Oh, that's cool. I don't think I've
Yeah.
seen that season yet.
Oh, it's so good.
So, when I was a senior in high school, um, I took a course on uh, criminal justice, and we got to do a lot of pretty cool things for it. The teachers tried really hard to get us to be able to spend a night in the county jail,
Oh, wow.
but they had to go before a judge, and the judge said in more judicial terms, no fucking way. Even in the 70s, it was like,
Oh,
are you kidding me? No. And they were like, no, but they could all be together. And no, there ain't no way.
mm, that would have
Uh,
been kind of cool.
it would have been very memorable.
You wouldn't have gotten any sleep.
No, no. Um, yeah, it would have been. It would have. It, that's the kind of thing would stick with you for a while. I mean, we
It
got.
sounds like
Go ahead.
it sounds like those TV shows. Have you ever? I don't know if they had it in
Scared
Britain.
straight.
Yeah, they had it in Britain when I was living there. Did they have an American version as well?
Yeah.
They do. They do. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's still on. I think A
I
and
don't.
E
Yeah, but
had
basically
something
it was
like it.
a similar sort of thing, taking offenders and taking them. Get I guess they got permission to take them to a prison, and they kind of left them there for a weekend. I mean, obviously they were watched, but
Right.
Scared
that,
straight programs. Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. So that didn't happen. The teachers were really disappointed, and the kids were like, "You were gonna do what?" But they did get us. So we drove down to Canyon City, Colorado, in the school buses, and we were going to get a tour of the maximum security prison for men. But the thing is that when we arrived, the whole prison was on lockdown because of riots.
Oh God.
So the warden said, "No fucking way." So very quickly, the teachers got huddled up and they said, there's a women's prison just up the road here.
Oh man.
And so they made some calls and they got us in and they arranged for us to have a tour of the women's prison.
Wow.
And it was fascinating, right? So the men's prison was this, you know, 19th century, cinder block, stone block, ancient fucking thing that just looked awful just from the outside, right? The women's prison was like a fucking college dormitory. And I'm not even exaggerating. It was modern, it was clean, the women had rooms to themselves with fucking doors on them. You know, not bars, doors with
Maybe it was a minimum security. Maybe the guys were like a like maximum. I don't know. Was
the
there a
men
difference
were
with?
definitely max.
Okay, but
Um
doors suggests like really minimal security. I've never
except
heard of doors.
yeah, I mean seriously, I've seen dormitories that were less nice.
Wow.
And they had TVs and all kinds of books and shit in their cells.
Hmm.
And we got to they broke us up into small groups, and the woman who was taking us around was a probably in her 30s, redhead, not too bad looking actually. And one of the guys in the group was kind of like, hey, hey. And eventually worked up the courage to ask near the end, so what are you in for? And she goes, I murdered my husband. And that was the last we heard from him on the tour. I mean, he just shut right up and moved to the back of the group. And so clearly not a minimum security.
Right. Wow. That's odd.
I mean, you know, I learned a lot about the inequality in the judicial system between men and women in those classes. And it's, if anything, gotten worse. Um,
Wow.
the men live in a shithole, hellhole, and the women live in as effectively dorms with a fence around it. Um, and the women get convicted, arrested, even and sentenced at a far lower rate than men do for the exact same things.
Huh.
So let's fight for equality and get women in jail more and longer. That's what equality means.
Mm.
Or we
And
could
I'm,
just low. We could you could lower the number of men in prison so that it's equal to the women. There's
you know,
always that.
that's probably a really smart thing to do. Um, I seriously think that there's, the judicial
Instead of putting
system's
more
pretty
people
fucked
in
up.
prison, instead of putting more people in prison to make the numbers equal, how about less people?
Hmm.
Well, you could start by getting rid of fuckhead laws like the drug laws that put
Right?
people in prison for possession.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I agree.
prostitution.
Yeah, and prostitution be another one.
Well, stop making every damn thing a felony to sound like you're tough on crime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stop being tough on crime, get rational on crime.
Were you just pretending to be that dog?
Oh, McGruff, the crime
Yeah.
dog. Rawr.
You sounded like him.
The problem, it's been estimated that in the United States, the average person commits 3 to 5 felonies a day without realizing it.
Yep.
Holy cow. What, like jaywalking and stuff like that?
No, jaywalking's not a felony.
Isn't it? Oh.
It's not even a misdemeanor. It's just a ticket.
There is a fantastic Twitter feed, and I can't remember the handle of it, but what it breaks down to is a felony a day. That's all they tweet. It's just one section of the U.S. code that's a felony you didn't know.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's gonna bug me until I remember what it is now. It's a fantastic feed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are so many fucking laws to break. And as one philosopher said, law abiding citizens are of no use to the government.
Crime a day at Crime a Day on Twitter. Let's
Yeah.
see, just to find one that's an example. 16 U.S. Code makes it a federal crime to import mixed caviar coming from multiple species of fish unless you know exactly how many fish eggs came from each kind of fish.
That's
Some of these are really funny. Let's
Yeah.
see another one. 7 U.S. Code 8303 makes it a federal crime to bring a rodeo pig, circus pig, racing pig, or state pig back into the United States after performing in Canada, damn Canadians, unless it has a valid U.S. health certificate.
What the fuck?
Hold on, I'll post it. Let's see. 50 U.S. Code makes it a federal crime to bring a slingshot to CIA headquarters.
oh my god.
uh, 21 U.S. Code makes it a federal crime to sell tomato juice that isn't red enough unless you expressly warn people that the juice has poor color.
Okay.
18 U.S. Code 2381, the treason statute. makes it a federal crime for a person owing allegiances to the United States to 1. Levy war against the U.S. or adhere to the country's enemies, and 2. Give them aid and comfort within the U.S. or elsewhere. That's probably in reference to Julian Assange getting more charges piled on, if I had to guess. 21 U.S. Code makes it a federal crime to sell antiperspirant with, quote, all-day extra effective protection unless it can sustain 30% sweat reduction over a 24-hour period.
Oh my God. That's someone has to sit and think of this stuff.
No, these are actually in the U.S. Code.
Yeah,
Every single one of them is a law.
Yeah, but someone had to sit and think of this stuff. Like, sit
Yeah.
at their desk and think about it. Like, just.
Yeah.
What were those kinds of pigs? That was hilarious.
Oh,
The,
hold on. I have to find the tweet again. See, there's the tomato juice. Here's another one. 18 U.S. Code makes it a federal crime to have sex in the training area of the Fort Jackson Army installation.
That is awesome. You
Slingshot
gotta,
to CIA headquarters is my favorite.
okay, you gotta wonder why they thought it necessary to be that specific about that one. Someone did something they didn't like, so they put a law in.
Right. Well, let's see. Pig,
you
circus
know
pig, racing
it
pig.
was the fucking senator's daughter.
Yeah.
I'll teach her.
And that Johnson cadet.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a circus pig, a racing pig, or a stage pig is.
Stage pig. What the fuck? A stage pig.
Hold on, I'll post the feed
Is
here.
that like Jack Black?
I guess. Yeah, that's twitter.com/crimeaday.
Yeah, I've actually just followed it.
That's
Fantastic
hilarious.
feed. That's it. This guy, he was a lawyer, and his goal when he started this was to catalog every single felony in the U.S. Code. So let's see. I thought he wrote that down as the description with it.
That'll be awesome. That'll go nicely with my. I also follow one that gives you how medieval people died, like the bizarre ways that they die. You get a new one every day.
Oh wow,
We should do shows on
that's a good
this.
one.
We should do shows on this. I
In
want.
1982, the DOJ attempted to count the total number of federal crimes. The Wall Street Journal said since then, no one has tried anything nearly as extensive until. That's why they started Crime a Day.
Well,
How to Become a Federal Criminal, an illustrated handbook for the aspiring offender. Out June 4th.
oh my God. Yeah, we totally should do ways people die in medieval times and stupid crime laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would actually be quite fun.
18 U.S. Code makes it a federal crime to fraudulently pretend to be a foreign diplomat in the United States.
That actually makes a little sense. Actually, I gotta say that actually makes a little bit of sense.
You know, there's a story behind every single one of these. It's
I
hilarious. It's got,
know,
and they all
right?
involve university students
Almost.
Or the daughters and sons of
of senators.
politicians
Yeah.
who are university students.
Yeah. Always university students are aliens.
7 U.S. Code 8313 makes it a federal crime to import a foreign stallion from a region affected by contagious equine metritis. I'm not sure what that is. If you don't wash its fully erect penis on 5 consecutive days and apply ointment to it after it's tested negative for the disease.
Jesus.
Wow, that's very specific.
Who wants that job?
Huh.
And should you hire the person who wants that job?
Ooh, maladjusted one has a good idea. Each one of you find a law and have to research and present it. Then we vote on the best.
Okay, we
And
got like
and we gotta put the name of the sponsor to the
The
law.
sponsor. Oh, okay.
The person who proposed this fucking law. I want to know names. I want names, man.
Okay, so wait a minute.
I'm good with that. Let's do it.
I'm a bit of a medievalist, so are we talking just U.S. laws, or is this free
No,
range?
free range. Anywhere in the
Uh,
world.
any time period?
Why not?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's fine.
okay.
I think we might get rid of that idea of the sponsor, though, if we're going to go old school with it.
Well, I
Yeah,
I
mean,
well,
guess you could just do
if
the
it's
emperor.
available, if it's
Yeah,
available,
if it's there.
yeah.
there's still some pretty really bizarre like laws in London that go back to medieval times because they've got the history. They're just so bizarre. So I could use some of
Well,
those.
there's bizarre current rules. You know, I was in London. I was in the UK about 10 years ago, and I was thinking about what kind of souvenir do I want to take home from England? And I thought, what better souvenir than a sword?
Oh my
You can't
god, I really.
fucking buy a sword in England.
You
What
Yeah.
the
can't take a sword on
hell?
the. You can't take a sword on an airplane.
In luggage, not
Oh, I
not an
see.
overhead,
You can
right?
get sword. You can
You
get
can have it
swords in
shipped.
England.
You have to have like special like fucking licenses and permits or shit.
Because they
Or
don't want
or or
people walking
replica
around with
bullshit.
swords. They don't want crazy people walking around with swords.
You don't have to make it illegal. Jesus. I mean, if you can't get a sword in England, England's in trouble. I mean, Jesus, the whole country is built on swords.
I had a sword when I was in England. I fenced when I was in England. Is that a different kind of sword? You talk a
Yes.
medieval sword? Okay.
Yes. I'm talking about a two-handed broadsword kind of shit, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe if we'd gone to Scotland, it would have been better.
21 U.S. code makes it a federal crime to sell boned and pickled pig's feet if the label doesn't show that they still have the bones inside.
Oh my god. What?
Well, you can't sell fillet of pig feet and have the bones in. That's just
Ugh.
deceptive. By the way, I want to make a quick announcement. Next week, Real Monsters will be on Friday and not on Thursday because there's a special Deadman's Tome episode, book release, something, something, something. Tune in to Deadman's
Surprise.
Tome to know what that is exactly. I'm too lazy to pay attention, except to know that we get to be on Friday instead of Thursday. That might be a good thing to do on our special Friday event is Crazy Laws. Or we can put it off. We'll talk about it.
16
Yeah.
U.S. code makes it a federal crime to be publicly nude in the Allegheny National Forest, but not if you have a nudity permit or you're naked in the course of official firefighting duties.
I,
The,
I have the story behind that one.
the thread
That
for this is a lot of guys convicted of this lie about the length of their sentence. Good night, Twitter.
oh my
Official
god.
firefighting duties.
A
I got
nudity permit.
I gotta say, being nude and fighting fires are a really bad combination in my mind. They
Yeah, I
just
would
do
think
not.
so.
These things do not go together.
Okay, so do you need the nudity permit in order to perform the firefighting duties, or can you just get the nudity permit? Because
I
if
have
so,
no
that
idea.
that might actually be on my bucket list now.
Being nude in the Allegheny National Forest?
No, just getting the
Have it
permit.
just getting the permit.
I just want the permit.
A lot of guys convicted of this lie about the length of their sentence. Good night, Twitter.
Oh god, but
Man, where do you apply for that permit? That's a good question.
I guess the Forest Service.
which forest was it?
The Allegheny National Forest. Is
Wow.
that Pennsylvania? I would assume.
Okay, so hang on a sec. I
This
wonder
is a
how old that law is because I'm not seeing anything.
this is a long way from sweet old grannies murdering people.
Yeah.
I actually just came up with an article that says nudity isn't illegal in national parks, but don't do anything weird.
Well, that's national parks. Forests are different.
Oh, right. Okay, got it. Well, apparently you can be nude in national parks. It's your right in the states.
Freedom of expression.
There you go. Huh. Okay. Well, I think that's as far as I'm going to go on that search.
Yeah. Some people are really happy expressing their limitations.
Hey, they're just communing with nature. It's nice.
What was it David Niven said about the streaker?
Oh, I'm not even sure.
Oh my God, that was hilarious. Anyway, we're getting way off topics.
Yeah,
Way off topic. This
we've
has
gone
been a
from
fun show tonight.
women who kill to streakers in forests. Yeah.
Um, Tune in next week on Friday for Real Monsters and Deadman's Tome. Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays normally, but next week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. And good night, everybody.
Night.
Night.